You're listening to ArTEEtude, a podcast with artists created and produced by Detlef Schlich, a visual artist and ritual designer, living and loving in West Cork, and best known for his essay about the cause and effect of shamanism, art and digital culture. Working in the field of performance, photography, painting, sound, installations, and film, he will dive and discover with us and a weekly creative guest into the unknown and exciting deep ocean of the creative mind.
This is Detlef Schlich, and today we dive into the deep and exciting unknown ocean of the creative mind of Cliff Roman, who is the legend of Californian punk rock, or who used to be the legend of Californian punk rock, and actually still is the legend of Californian punk rock. So, hi Cliff.
Hi Det.
And it is. I mean, we went now through so many different things. I mean, I really liked it. To educate us about the Californian punk rock scene in the last couple of episodes, which is quite interesting because a lot of people here in Europe they wonder, so what's their Californian punk rock, you know?
Well, we talked about like our first few shows, which culminated in the show at the Orpheum Theater with the Weirdos and the Zeros and the Germs. Yeah, and how that was ended up being quite an historic moment in the LA punk rock scene, because what we didn't talk about was what happened afterwards. And just quickly, 1977 and the summer of 1977 was like that was the year where the Weirdos we kind of ruled Sunset Strip. We ended up playing the Whiskey A Go Go. So we're going from playing a soundstage at Gower Studios to a little 90-seat theater, the Orpheum Theater. The next thing that happens to us, we're asked to play the Whiskey A Go Go for New Wave Punk Rock Night, that presented by Kim Fowley and Rodney Bingenheimer, who were at our show at the Orpheum Theater, right? Yeah. But the bands that are on this bill, and I can't remember if the Germs were or not, but they're not really considered punk rock bands for the most part. So, but what happened is we play at the Whiskey. I think it was like on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. It was going to be like a 4-night thing, and we go over really well. We do our set. We're on the stage of the Whiskey. We go over really well. The place is packed. Our parents are there. Our friends are there. Family, friends. Yeah. And word had got around, and Rodney Bingenheimer now is talking about this on the radio show. And so this is probably in May. So the next month, in May. And what happens is they call us up after we play the Whiskey, and they go, come back Friday night for an encore performance. Yeah. We're like, wow, okay. So now we're playing a second show at the Whiskey, right?
Okay, yeah.
And this photographer takes a photo of us backstage. And it's published in Time magazine.
Okay, cool.
Which has worldwide distribution.
Yeah.
Article on punk rock. The first article on punk rock in Time magazine.
Wow.
It was actually on the cover. The theme on the cover was youth crime. But our photo was in Time magazine. So now we're like, people, I'm getting phone calls from, people wanting us to play. They want to interview us. They want to photograph us.
Just in California or what?
And you know what happens next? So the whiskey is like, well, what are we going to do with these bands? You know what they decide to do? We're going to have punk rock bands on Sunday afternoon, like matinee shows.
Yeah.
So that's where the scene starts coalescing around these matinee shows at the whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Soon afterwards, and we do a few shows around town. We play another club called the Starwood. That was another rock club that we a few months ago we would never have dreamed that we would be on, let alone on stage at the Whiskey, in Time magazine, or on stage at the Starwood. We would never dream that would have happened to us.
It happened very quick. Yeah.
Things start happening quickly.
Yeah.
People were trying to thought maybe we can get them. People thought they could get assigned to a label, but that never happened. So this was 1977, summer of 77, and then they book us to play with the Runaways. That was huge. The Weirdos supporting the Runaways. Yeah. And at the Whiskey. Yeah. So when we play the Whiskey, a show like that, you have to play 2 shows a night. Mm-hmm. So we did 2 nights with the Runaways. So now we've got, like, by that point, I think that was in August of 77, we've got a lot of shows under our belt. Also what happens is we're contacted by this new magazine called Slash Magazine. Slash. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's a magazine dedicated to punk rock. A local LA magazine. And we're on the cover, the Damned are on the cover of the first issue, and there's an article on the Screamers inside the first issue, and an interview, and then they come and they photograph us and interview us, and they put our singer, John Denny, on the cover of the second issue. Oh. And so now and then there's some fanzines popping up. And then the next thing that happens, this space opens that summer down Hollywood Boulevard underneath a porno theater called the Pussycat Theater, down in the basement, called The Mask. Mm-hmm. And that's where the whole punk scene kind of coalesced around that space, The Mask. And they started having shows down there. And eventually, by the end of the year, we would actually perform in The Mask. And so the whole thing just got momentum. By September, of that year, we're on the bill to play the Hollywood Palladium. Now, that's where the Rolling Stones play, the Hollywood Palladium. Yeah. We're on a bill with Blondie, the Weirdos, and this band that came into town from Ohio called Devo. They're opening below us.
Sure, Devo, I know.
Right? Yeah. So, and then, and records start coming out. The Germs release a record on What Records? A really brilliant record. I mean, it was a landmark record.
You guys did as well great stuff, didn't you?
But a few records came out before our first record, and then a band called the Dills. Now the Dills, they played on the first show we ever did at the Gower Studios, but they weren't. All of a sudden, they're like a 3-piece guitar, bass, drummer, and they're like this wild band, and they have songs like "I Hate the Rich" and "Mr. Big," and they put out a record that's brilliant. That caught us all off guard. So everything is now being done by independent record labels, and people are putting out 45s, not albums, just 45s, singles.
Yeah, by Rough Trade.
And of course, by this time also, we're starting to buy records from, like, the Ramones put out a second album, and then there's the band The Saints. Chris Bailey just passed away, I think it was yesterday, from The Saints.
Okay,
the Saints from Australia had a terrific sound, not too unlike the Ramones. And then the Damned, their first album, and then we start buying singles by the Clash, the Buzzcocks, and the Sex Pistols. So there's more like stuff to inspire you and influence you. Yeah, absolutely. And sure. We're seeing fanzines, photos, everything. Stuff is starting to get out there. Worldwide. So 1977 was like our peak year. You know, we The original band made it.
How many years did you play together?
We were together from 77 to 81. But the band changed. We changed drummers, bass players, things like that.
Why?
Over that.
Why?
Well, various things happen. It's, I can tell you why. But things happen. It's like any other band.
Yeah, but I think if you once get somehow a certain extent of famous, so the fact that you could make an income from your music was quite close, wasn't it? I mean,
well, yeah, we turned down a few offers here and there because we didn't think they were the kind of offers that would be good for us in the long run. People wanted to just own you. They wanted to own your image. They wanted to own your publishing.
Yeah,
they wanted to tell you. They wanted to control you and tell you what to do. So
you wanted. You felt independent as well somehow.
Yeah. Our scene was called a DIY, a do-it-yourself.
Yeah. No, I know that.
Do-it-yourself, DIY, do-it-yourself kind of scene.
It was actually the time where I mean, we were the same. We were completely against the establishment, So and we didn't like it to become part of a major company.
This
So we put out our first record that September. In fact, we recorded it the day Elvis dies. Right?
Yeah.
We're in the studio and we learn on the news that day Elvis Presley was found dead.
Yeah.
So on our first record, I had him when they mastered it. I said, "Can you write something on the record?" And the guy goes, "Sure. What do you want me to write?" And I said, "The King is dead." So our first record, and they're quite valuable now, is etched "The King is Dead" on the the inside of the right on the wax there of the 45. And we did our own work, our artwork. We started doing these really cool color these Xerox. I showed you a couple.
So how many artists were in your band? You were the only one.
Five
artists. So same like
artists? No, there was like four of us. Nicky wasn't really an artist, the drummer, but the rest of us all did flyers, designed flyers. We designed our clothes. We designed our backdrops. We designed, our
it's
our
interesting,
record
isn't it?
sleeve. And this is our first record right here. See?
All right, yes, guys. You can see that next Sunday on YouTube. So I will show you that our talk on YouTube, and you can see this record there. It's actually like Talking Heads, isn't it? I mean, they had as well four artists in the band, 4 visual artists.
Well, we knew about the Talking Heads. They came and played L.A. I bought their record, and here's we got the new trombone. We
got the new trombone. Yeah.
And here's the back of it. The flip side was a song called Solitary Confinement, another really popular and covered song.
Yeah.
And on the inside, now this was on a local label, very famous label now called Danger House Records. And Danger House was, a do-it-yourself operation.
Yeah, cool.
Danger House.
The vinyl.
Here's the part I designed. I designed this part right here.
Great.
When the record spins.
Weirdos. Cool.
And then, here's what I wanted to show you. And then on the inside is the Weirdos.
Yeah.
Now there's me. Look, there's me.
All right. Yeah.
Dave Trout.
Yeah.
John Denny.
Yeah.
Nicky Beat, the drummer.
Okay. Yeah.
Dix Denny.
All right.
And you can see, look at that photo. Our heads are in the in this barrier. That was my idea. I said, let's take a photo with our heads through this barrier.
Yeah. It's cool. Great. Looks great. So you guys went together.
If you want to know something, someone told me yesterday they saw a copy of this for sale at a record meet on Saturday. Yeah. And the guy who's selling it, a friend of mine, Michael Vallejo, wants $200 for an original copy of this.
So how many originals do you still have?
Oh, I might still have a couple. sale.
No, I know. It's not.
Anyways,
too bad, isn't it? Yeah.
So the band lasted for a few years, and we were and a lot of people. When you talk to people who are in the scene nowadays, in fact, there's a guy named Doug Fitzsimmons who's interviewing all the original punk rockers that are still around for a project he's doing. Yeah. And he told me the other day. He said like, I'm telling you, like 9 out of 10 people tell me that their favorite band was the Weirdos. The best band was the Weirdos.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? I mean, it's somehow it's cool. It's a good feeling being somehow part of something creative.
You've heard of Van Halen, right?
Yeah.
All right. So when we start when we start playing the Whiskey, Van Halen, like they were always hanging out at the Whiskey. Yeah. Van Halen, all 4 band members would be the guitarist, the singer. They were like on the side of the stage watching us every time we did a show. There's Van Halen. They kind of copped a few. They copped a few fashion ideas from us because John Denny would wear these pants where you put black tape in different angles on it. Yeah, yeah. And of course, Eddie Van Halen is very famous for his guitar with the black tape on it. Yeah. And even David Lee Roth kind of borrowed that idea for pants too. Sure. But I mean, that 1977.
I did it as well.
we played the Whiskey a lot, and it was a great room. And we were probably the only local LA punk band besides maybe the Screamers, and then came a band called the Dickies, but that could really draw.
I know
a crowd.
The Dickies actually.
Yeah,
I know them.
Yeah. So anyway, so we never put out an album. We never got out of LA. We didn't play CBGBs. We didn't get to England or Japan. We just sort of we played locally. We played. We played California a few places. We played in Arizona. We played in Oregon and Washington, the state of Washington. So we were mainly on the West Coast. And
you never were so enthusiastic than to become so famous that you toured overseas or whatever. There was nobody was really interested in that. So because you had to make major deals, probably.
Right. So the only band. So there's this band starts called the Dickies, and they really kind of borrow a lot. A lot of the local LA punk bands borrow a lot from like our look, but of course everyone's inspired by the English bands, the New York bands. There was a lot of different bands to get, and everyone was a little different. So there was a lot of variety. Yeah. But the LA scene was incredible. There was a band called the Plugs, my favorite. There was the Dills, the Germs, the Bags, the Screamers. In fact, I think the first wave of LA punk bands was the Weirdos, the Screamers, the Zeros, the Germs, the Dills, and the Dills. I think those 5 bands were probably like the first wave, and then a bunch of bands followed, including the Dickies start playing, and they get signed. They get a deal with A&M Records, and start putting out pretty slick records. And later on, a band then the Screamers start doing shows, and Devo's in town, and they're doing shows. They start out by opening for the Weirdos. Everyone opened for the Weirdos. In fact, recently I did an interview with Pat Smear of the Foo Fighters and Belinda Carlisle of the Go-Go's for Foo Fighters Radio. It's on Sirius XM. It's still on there if you're interested. And it's just a short interview. So I'm reminding them they're both in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not in ArTEEtude Hall of Fame. But they're in the. But and so I said to them, "Hey, I said, hey, I just want to remind you guys." Both of you, your bands used to open for the Weirdos, and they both told me that the Weirdos were their favorite band. They said, "The Weirdos is my favorite band." Belinda goes, "The Weirdos was my favorite."
I can't
band.
imagine that.
So,
I mean, I was listening to your songs a little bit, so as research, and it was great,
Yeah,
great tunes.
we were known actually for our songwriting, and I was the songwriter. I wrote the songs, the music.
Yeah.
I wrote the hooks, the intro, the verses.
Your new songs, they're
choruses.
great. They're great as well.
Yeah, I still write songs.
We come to that in a minute.
Yeah.
What I would like to know as well is so after that you stopped. Did you stop completely making music? I mean.
Yes. So I reached a point. I was married. I had a baby. We had a baby girl, and I reached a point where the being in a band took up a lot of time and energy, and
Sure.
I wasn't making money. Right? We do a gig, and if we were paid $500, I that might be a good payday. But sometimes we'd get paid $250. Sometimes, if we were lucky, we'd have to play a couple nights at the Whiskey. They'd pay us $1,000.
Yeah.
So we were one of the higher paid bands. Yeah, but we'd have to divide it up. People.
It's not much,
we had friends of ours that would roadie for us. We'd have to pay them. We'd have to pay a sound guy. We'd have to pay for rehearsal space.
I know.
We weren't. And then there's 5 guys in the band. So by the time it got to us, I'd make $20.
Yeah.
So by 19, and then John Denny quits the band in 1981. We would get some. It was hard, but we would get some momentum going, right?
Sure.
And then something would happen, and someone would leave the band. So the first thing that happened was we decided. Well, Dave Trout was released from the band, and we got a different bass player for various reasons, and so that was kind of a shock. And then
changed the whole
right
thing.
But we got a really good bass player named Bruce Moreland, and then so that's 1978, right? Then by the end of 1978, we don't have Nicky Beat anymore. He decides to leave, and Bruce Moreland
changed
leaves.
as well a lot. Yes.
So now it's just down to
he moved to the Chili Peppers already. Then, didn't he?
No. This is before Chili Peppers. But Bruce moves to a famous band called Wall of Voodoo.
Okay, I know them.
Yeah, and Nicky decides he doesn't want to. Nicky plays with all the bands. Like every time we'd see Nicky, or people would say, "Oh, I saw Nicky play with the Germs," or "I saw Nicky play with," he was always playing with different bands.
Yeah.
Like
you do if you're a musician. So.
Right. But he decides to leave the band, so that's at the end of 78. So then we record a record, and we were kind of ahead of our time. We went in and we self-financed and recorded a 6-song mini-album called Who, What, When, Where, Why. It comes out in 1979. No one's interested in it. Line Records in Germany. Have you ever heard of Line Records? Line? Yeah, they release it in Germany. We're getting, good reviews, good write-ups, but the record was ahead of its time because we go in the studio, and actually it was recorded right here where I live in Thousand Oaks, in the home of Earl Mankey, who's produced. His list of bands he's produced goes from Sparks on up to very famous bands. So we get Earl Mankey to record us in his home on a 16-track, and we're using synthesizer. I play sax. We use keyboards.
Yeah. Oh, what you've learned.
We play a rockabilly song called Jungle Rock. Very sort of pretty much.
Sounds very avant-garde-like.
Yeah. And then we write some new songs. We record a song called Fort USA that I wrote. And so that record comes out, and it was people would hear that, and they were like, "This doesn't sound like the Weirdos." So it didn't really do well. But when you listen to it now, I mean, it's a really well recorded work of art. And we employ a drummer who I meet named Danny Benaire, who's went on. He was in a band called The Quick, and he's like a. He's like a Wrecking Crew style drummer. He's like a studio musician style drummer. And we use a friend of his on bass named Billy. So get that album out, and then we need a drummer and a bass player. So we find a drummer. Someone suggested a guy named Art Fox, who was a studio drummer, and we find a guy in another band called the Flyboys called Willie Williams. So we get them in the band, and that's 1979. So by the end of 79, we're back to the three of us again. Art Fox is out, Willie is out, and that's when we get, and they last into 1980, and then we get a drummer named Cliff Martinez. So now we have two Cliffs in the band, and I'm on bass, and I'm not on guitar anymore. So you see, the band kind of evolved and changed.
The dynamic changed, and eventually probably that. I mean, not many bands can.
But the thing was, I could always get a show. You know, people would call me up. We'd like to book the Weirdos. You know, and we were usually a headliner. Sometimes we would support bands who were local. We didn't like it, but we were asked to support the Dickies because a Weirdos Dickies bill would draw a lot of people. Or we would, but we never thought of ourselves as openers for the Dickies. And then, or we would play. We did a show with the Screamers, but we always thought ourselves as either equals or not. We would never think of supporting the Screamers, but we did. Or we were asked to support the band X because X comes along and they get real popular really fast. They get a lot of good press, and so we were sort of like. The Weirdos our thing was kind of over by the end of 1977, even though we were still around until 1981. And every time we had a change in the band personnel, we'd have to build momentum again.
Sure.
But we put out some records. We put out...
But it's very difficult.
It's very difficult. We put out the two singles, and we put out the Who, What, When, Where, Why on Bomp Records. And then we put out on Rhino Records a 4-song 12-inch, which is a great record, too, called Action Design. But it doesn't have the same sort of, new sound or that big sound like our records. We got the Neutron Bomb, And anyway, so eventually the singer John Denny decides he calls me up one day and he's leaving the band. So the band's over with, and this is 1981.
Yeah. And you stopped completely, or did you?
Well, no. I played guitar with several bands, and then in the early '80s, I started a synth band. I was very interested in playing synthesizer and creating electronic music.
Yeah.
So our synth band was called Martini Ranch, and we would play clubs in LA, and we got booked on shows with Bauhaus.
Cool.
Bauhaus.
Yeah.
We got booked on a show with the Cramps. With Missing Persons. And so, because everyone knew me from the Weirdos, so if I called them up and I said, I have a new band, and now Martini Ranch was incredible. I played synthesizer, right?
Yeah.
I'm not playing guitar.
Yeah.
I programmed the bass line. I programmed the drum machine, put it all connected everything.
Yeah.
I'd hit the button, and the sound would be hooked up right into the PA, and it would just sound incredible.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
And we caught Mark Mothersbaugh got interested in us from Devo, and he produced a demo for us for Geffen Records, and it just didn't go anywhere. So I left that band, and
that's a shame. Do you still have some music from that? Mm-hmm. You might send it to me.
If you I don't have anything I can send because everything's if I have anything, it's on cassette.
Okay.
But the guitarist in the band, Andrew Todd, he kept the band going, and actually got an album out on Sire Records that got some airplay. So, anyways, I was in that band for a few years, and that's the early '80s, and then I worked from the mid '80s to the end of the 80s. I worked in the music business. I worked for the manager of a hair band called Rat. Rat was like Motley Crue or Poison, they're like one of those bands.
Yeah.
And so at that point I'm in the business, and I'm like I'm on the phone all the time, they're on tour, so I was sort of the office, they would send me the big merchandising checks, and I was in charge of like a lot of stuff. When they did videos, I was in charge of hiring crews and making sure people got fed and paid, and I was like in the background there. I didn't really go on the road with them, but I was always at the office on the phone between the record company, between their producer, between their manager and other people, publicists, photographers. So
and you
I
were
did that
already
for about 5 years.
And you were already together with your girlfriend at this time, no?
Yeah, my girlfriend Grace, we met when we were 15 years old on an archaeological dig when we were in high school in Arizona. So I meet this beautiful, gorgeous Mexican-American girl with just beautiful dark skin, beautiful hair, very, very just stunning, beautiful person. And
you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna tell that in the next episode.
Oh, okay. So yes, but I was with her when I was. What I was just going to say is I was with Gracie almost my whole life, and when I left Cal Arts, we moved in together, and then 5 years later we got married, and then when we had a baby, our daughter was born in 1985, and that's when I was working for Marshall. But then what happened was I'm out of a job. By the end of the 80s, I'm out of a job, and my mom was a teacher. She taught math at a middle school in the Valley, in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. Yeah. And she says, Cliff, you have a bachelor degree. The district is hiring people.
And that we tell in the next episode.
All right.
Because we are already now on 30 minutes, and I would say this is worth to keep for the next episode.
All right.
Otherwise, we have to cut the next episode too much. So, dear listeners, if you want to listen next Sunday, 10 o'clock, early confession to the life of an ex-punk rocker, we're gonna do that next week. I would say if you want to contact Cliff, go to Instagram at Cliff Roman or to Facebook Cliff Roman. If you want to contact me, go to Instagram at Detlef Schlich or at ArTEEtude or at Isle of West Cork Artists, or join the Isle of West Cork Artists group at Facebook, where you can meet us all together, or go to, because Cliff is in the hall of ArTEEtude, and if you fancy a mug of coffee or whatever with us, go to www.arteetude.com.
A cup of tea.
A cup of tea, yes. So an Englishman in New York. Go to www.arteetude.com, and there you can find all the other artwork. And if you buy a mug, you can support my podcast, because it's a listener-supported podcast. So, and you get all the information there as well. Cliff, thank you very much to enlighten us.
You're welcome.
So how it was. I mean, there's so much depth in it, so in the stories, history, and the culture actually as well of how bands going up, how they're going down. So I'm quite sure that the listeners appreciate that, to this understanding. So how difficult it is to be an artist in this world, because of surviving and how you're going. So, dear listeners, so you saw now how difficult it is, to make an income, and that it's mostly it's about enthusiasm, So and to create art and music and for the sake of culture and for the sake of love, On that note, Cliff, I would say I'll see you next Sunday, and have a lovely day. Bye. I love you all. Ciao.
You have listened to ArTEEtude, West Cork's first art, fashion and design podcast. ArTEEtude, never so close again. That was too close.
All right.